Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Michelle, and Tracy, I missed the noon session. I was in another meeting, but this is our general Q&A session, right? So
it is.
We're open to any and all questions that you may have, and I'll defer to you too about the format of how it ran smoothly this afternoon. But just want to welcome everybody. Thank you for your continued interest.
We did, and I think Tracy opened it up.
Go ahead, Michelle. Do you want me to go
Yes,
ahead? Okay, so
go ahead.
It's hard. It's so hard. We kind of, we're happy everybody came on. This is our last scheduled session of the Q&As with the community, and we've appreciated doing this. We've appreciated everybody that's hopped on and had some great questions for us. Really has been helpful for us and the regional center as a whole, and learning and being able to take information back to our staff and focus more on what we've heard from participants, current SDP participants, as well as caregivers and support people. It's been a real great thing for us. So I just appreciate all of the input that we've gotten week to week, and week to every other week, I guess I can say. But today we kind of just left it open. We left this very last session open. We didn't schedule any speakers or format specific to any topics. We thought that we would leave this open for a variety of questions, whatever questions may have come up over the previous sessions, whatever questions may have come up in orientation, whatever sessions may have come up with, maybe some conversations with their planning teams, anything that you all would like to ask, you can ask in the chat, or you can turn your microphone on, and we will, be happy to field questions.
Thanks, Tracy. So with that, we are open for questions, of course. And as Tracy said, if you prefer the chat, we'll keep an eye on the chat there. And you can also shout it out.
Okay, well, I'll just shout out as usual.
Yay, good, Karen. I was hoping you would.
You can always count on me with a question. A couple of things. First of all, I really appreciate you guys doing all these Q&A sessions. I know that I learned a lot of things that are not written down anywhere. So for me, it was really helpful. There's just people who've been through it. And then there's just a lot of things that, haven't been outlined in self-determination, because this is sort of a learning process. So I just wanted to say thank you for all the effort that you guys put into this. My question is really about, how do you expect that a vendored service provider will be able to participate in self-determination? And in particular, how much flexibility will they have to really change something about what is their existing service and program design and move into something different? And so let me also say that one of the things that I've been wondering about is, where does a client in self-determination find cost savings if they want to continue to work with their current provider, but maybe they don't need all the bells and whistles that they have under the vendorized model? And also there's the element that the regional center is not going to be managing and monitoring providers in self-determination the same way that they have been under the traditional vendor model? So this is a very long question. Sorry for that, but I hope you understand what I'm getting at here.
I think so. We can tackle it. And Michelle and Tracy, please chime in. I heard two questions. The first question I heard was, how will a vendored service provider be able to participate and change their program design and do something different for one particular participant? So I think we can start there. And I think your questions are related. I think what I've heard, and I'm thinking about some of the scenarios that are in the SDP orientation around vendored providers and how you would go to the provider and negotiate with them, ask for their rates, or the regional center can provide rates. And if you're not needing all the bells and whistles, as you say, you might negotiate, let's say the rate is $20 an hour, just to keep things simple. You might say, well, how about $13 an hour because I don't need this aspect of your program or that aspect of your program. So it's really about that negotiation. And then in terms of customizing the vendored service provider to be an SDP service provider, I think that's also part of that negotiation process, and working with your planning team. Maybe the independent facilitator can help with that. Also, the FMS agency, it seems like the FMS agencies would be ready to assist with that process around the rates and such. And I see Kadada's making comments in the chat around that as well. So thank you, Kadada. Michelle, Tracy, do you want to add anything to that? And you don't have to use a vendor provider either. There's also that piece.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I think that's a really great point. And sorry, I didn't have my camera on earlier when I was talking. I did not realize that. I was sitting here sharing, but I think that's a great point, is that you are not limited to regional center vendors. And so if you, within your community are able to, develop some sort of support system that can provide a service that is individualized to the participants' needs and what the participants wanting for their daily routine, weekly routine, then I think that is really one of the things that SDP can offer, is to look outside of regional center vendors. And the other thing I heard you say, Karen, was the kind of a QA piece about that, the oversight. Like with the regional center, we have community services department that does
Right.
oversight with day programs. We have our residential, who has oversight with care homes and quarterlies, those kind of things. Community care licensing is also involved. And yes, with SDP, if you're using one of our vendors, that would be a built-in, something that would already be built in just because of the program itself, would have that oversight through the regional center, through CCL, if it's a licensed program. But individually through SDP, if you negotiate with someone in your community, that would be the responsibility to interview them, and making sure that you kind of make that QA piece, a central part of the discussion.
So if I understand you correctly, Tracy, your expectation is that anyone in SDP who uses a vendored provider, but in a non-vendored SDP capacity, that vendor will still be subject to regional center oversight?
Because there would be other clients who are in traditional services attending that program. So
no, I understand, but so let me give you a better example. We have up here in my county a vendor that is vendorized for a portion of their business where they do respite, and another portion of their business where they do elder services is not vendored. And clearly the regional center does not do any oversight on that portion of their business. So I'm wondering, are you going to be taking the same approach with self-determination, where anyone who is in SDP and working with someone who happens to be vendored for a vendored service, but they're going to create something new and different and maybe not even in the service code that they're operating in, is the regional center's expectation that they will still be monitoring those vendors and managing those vendors? Because it's a cost question, basically.
Well, I guess maybe I'm missing something, because we would oversee any vendor that the regional center has. Now, if you through SDP choose to utilize a vendor and they negotiate something completely independent outside of what any of the other clients are receiving, is that, I guess I'm not clear. I feel like I'm not sure. I know that we would be responsible for continuing to do the QA for all our vendors. I don't know.
In traditional services, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the one client, this is Michelle, and the one client that is in SDP program and is choosing to utilize that vendor, basically tailoring their services, we would not have the same expectations for that entity like we would a vendor in traditional services.
Right. Okay.
So does that answer you? Does that answer your question?
Not entirely, because you know, I think the question in my mind will be, will the regional center in SDP, if you're using someone who's vendored for one service, but you're using that same LLC or corporation or something for a different service, to create a different service, is that regional, are you still expecting that because they have a portion of their business vendored in another area, that you will still be performing, you know, the regional center, the same kind of regional center oversight that you would with traditional vendor providers?
And Karen, my understanding is we would not perform the same level of oversight for the vendor in SDP as we would for somebody in traditional services.
Yeah, but so if someone were not vendored with you at all, then you would be performing no oversight other than through, you know, the normal IPP process. If the client says they're not happy, this vendor isn't working out, then it would be up to that client's team to locate another service provider. But that would be, as I understand,
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. But it sounds like if some of an existing service provider wants to participate in SDP, they would really have to create another company in order to have a fully independent offering that was not, you know, was not going to be part of the regional center oversight effort.
I think I'm lost. I got a little lost in your question, Karen, but so we have a person who chose to buy some day program services. She's from a vendor provider. So that person went through and basically tailored her, tailored her own services, picked and choose what she wanted to participate in. And even though it's a vendored service provider, her services are very different. They're not traditional at all. And so our oversight of that participant and that entity that she's choosing to buy services for, like there's no regional center oversight other than there is the plan, like you said earlier, there is the planning team.
Right.
But our oversight is very, very different. And it is basically, you know, the participant plays a big role in that.
Mhm.
Yes.
part of the SDP, like I remember doing orientations, years ago. And one of the focuses that empowerment and, making sure consumers recognize certain signs of abuse and things like that. We want to be able to empower our clients. And when those, concerns or things come up, of course they do have the team, and we are here, we are mandated reporters. So that element is not going away, but it is the consumer that hires the entity. And so we want to, and the FMS, they also play a role depending on the type of service that you choose. If it's bill payer or, co-employer, like the FMS may also share in the employer responsibilities. And so if we have a situation, I think it's really important to involve the regional center, the participant, the FMS. We haven't had a lot of experience in this area, but I do think if something were to come up, we would certainly want to make sure that people, that we're all working together to support the participant and what their desires are.
We wouldn't leave you hanging, Karen.
Actually, my concern is more the opposite, because when you enter into self-determination, you have to carve cost out somewhere in order to pay the FMS at the very least, and the independent facilitator, whatever else. And on, we've had a number of experiences over the years where, in the pursuit of excellence, costs have been added onto providers to do over and above what is required in Title 17 or by the law or whatever. And that ends up, pushing costs in the different direction than where a participant who wants to enter into SDP needs to go. So in some cases, you're going to have a circle of support that's going to be very vigilant and really help to perform that quality role. But they may still find themselves looking at unexpected costs if the regional center is continuing to require above, over and above the letter of the law kinds of changes. So that was really kind of, I think we will get some questions about this from providers who are vendored, and they're going to be wondering, how do we approach this? How independent are we going to be in self-determination? And families are going to need to know how to have that conversation with them too. So that was really why I was asking.
Very good question. Yeah, good discussion for sure.
Can I piggyback on that a little bit?
Oh.
My name's Susan.
Yes,
Is it
Susan,
okay
I was just
to
going to
jump
get
in?
to your question too. So thank you.
And
Go ahead.
Actually, it kind of follows up on Karen's a bit. And one kind of just point of clarification, I was on the independent facilitator training last week that Progressive Employment did through that the regional center SDP advisory committee sponsored and funded by the DDS. And when the question was asked about, have they seen a reduction in costs, because obviously, as Karen said, you have to pay other costs that aren't in the current system. None of the team of independent facilitators who were providing the training had seen any reduction in cost. They have only seen an increase in cost if individuals want to pay their service providers more if they went through a vendorized service. So I thought that was very interesting. And I guess that's kind of one of my questions is, have we seen, because we had a number of people I'm not clear whether because we have so few of the pilot participants who remained in self-determination, many dropped out. And I'm not sure if they actually got into it or just tried to get into it. But did any of it come because they truly were not able to get the services they needed within the cost structure provided.
I've heard that feedback too, that some are finding that SDP is not a cost savings at this time. You know, that is one of the goals, is that we want it to be sustainable, and we want it to be something that really is customized toward the individual needs of the participant. So Susan, could you repeat your question?
It is,
You're asking.
I'm asking, have we found that anyone who has made an effort to go into SDP, and I know, you know, we're just doing a global rollout, but we've had
Yes.
the pilot program, has anyone found that they really could not stay in SDP because they couldn't get the services that they needed within, you know, including the added costs of FMS and IF, and so they really just couldn't do that, you know?
Thank you for restating that. I'm not aware of anyone who has dropped out of SDP because they found it was not cost effective as they had hoped, or because of the IF fee or the FMS fee. Tracy, Michelle, do you have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I agree. I have not.
Okay.
And all of the, you know, because we query our teams too to find out, you know, if someone chooses to opt out of SDP, and all of the ones that I am familiar with opted out before even getting to the budget piece of the process. So I am not. I have none that that have been come through me that have opted out after they got to the budget, did the spending plan, and determined that that was not in the participant's best interest to go that route. So that has not happened. That is not, I can say for sure that has not happened on my team.
Same here.
Okay,
and I think
and
I heard
then
Michelle saying,
The same is true for me. Yes, that has not happened.
That's great to hear. And I just wonder if you think, if any of you have seen that timing makes a difference, like if, you know, to do it right away versus to wait for any reason. Would there be any reason to wait? And one example I'm thinking is if you are just transitioning, for example, from, I would say from young person care to the adult system of care because you're through with the school districts. And so you don't have any adult services yet. Does it make any sense to wait, or you just say we have unmet needs and we go forward from there, even if it's self-determination? Is there ever a time, you know, would you ever suggest someone wait for any reason from a timing perspective?
I think for me, I wouldn't suggest that they wait for due to timing. I would say, let's get you, like, let's say, I think about children coming from early start, for example, a 3-year-old just coming into Lantern and Services. If they are interested in SDP, I would advise a parent to get started right away with their traditional services, simultaneous working on SDP. That way there's not any type of gap of service or support. And I would envision that the same for the circumstance that you just described, you know, leaving the school system to adult services. Your traditional services are going to continue all the way until you, quote, flip that switch to SDP. So I think stay on that traditional track and simultaneously do all that good work toward the SDP track for that transition.
And I agree with Jen. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Tracy.
Go ahead.
Okay. I agree with Jen. I wouldn't suggest that someone wait either. You know, our catchment area is so large, and we have folks that, you know, live in some rural areas, and sometimes they have had difficulty with securing services like respite because they couldn't find anyone that lived in their area. So I think, you know, people are going to see different values in SDP, and I would just encourage them to go for it.
Susan, to answer your question that you put in the chat when we first started, unfortunately, we don't have an answer yet as to whether there is funding available for the initial PCP, Person-Centered Plan. I think we're feeling optimistic that there will be, but I don't have anything to share today about that with certainty. So I think it's better just to zip it until we have something official.
Can I say something to Susan?
Please.
Where did she go? Susan, you're asking for reasons to wait. And I mean, one obvious reason might be that there's just going to be a bottleneck for, at least a few months. So if you were all set in services and things were okay right now, waiting, 2 or 3 months might be a good thing, because there might be 500 people trying to get into self-determination starting July 1st. But if you don't have any services set up right now because your loved one is just finishing high school, then I would say don't wait, because you want to get things set up and he or she may not be in any services right now. Does that make sense? But there's going to be a lot of people who are very eager, who've been thinking about this and planning on this for a long time. And so I don't know what Tracy, Jennifer, or Michelle think about that, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of people all at once trying to get through the process.
I do, Sonia, thank you. It's Susan again. I do understand that. I think, but either way, we're going to have to be trying to get appropriate services, and maybe we are even doing it concurrently. We're saying now, there's qualification, for example, for ILS services. Well, let's get those started, because it might be quicker than, as you say, the bottleneck, but still try to look for an IF, or, just to start the process, start doing the research.
And I think it's important, I know one of the, one of the positive aspects about SDP is being able to access those services in your community, or through, people have talked about through their church, or, and whether it's employment skills or volunteering or those kind of things, and beginning to kind of see what the participant, what's important to them, what's important for them, all the the person-centered planning things, and then looking within the community to see, and not shying away from regional center vendors at all. But I think one of the important pieces of SDP is that it gives opportunities that you can't get through the regional center, and that you can access through the community. And so really, when you were talking about exiting the school system, then looking within the community and saying, what are those services? And still, like Jennifer was saying, is going down the road of putting in place traditional services, just so that participant client can have a program to attend during the day, if that's what he or she chooses to do, or supported employment. Something can be in place. But parallel to that, setting up SDP, looking at those services, finding out what would work, once you go down the SDP track and negotiate some of those services with people or programs, or who are not regional center vendors, who can provide those type of supports to meet the goals. So it's almost like a dual track, I would say, in that regard, making sure that you have something in place while you're investigating or moving down the path of self-determination. But again, that's all individual choice. Some people may say, we're good where we are right now. We don't, we're not going to transition into an adult program. But then what the regional center would do would say that, okay, that would be an unmet need, because they're not in a day program, or a work program, but they've exited the school district. So that would have been the traditional track that someone would have went. So then we can assess that can be assessed into the budget for SDP. So.
One of the things I noticed when we had a very small group of current participants describing their experiences is that most of them are still using vendor service providers, and they flipped the switch, but the plan is for them to, or for one of them that I recall anyway, to move away from the vendor and hire their own staff. But I can see why expenses under SDP are running higher because they're still using the same vendorized providers, the same vendor providers. And, you know, they haven't, to the best of my recollection, no one had really identified a way to cut costs with a vendor provider. And I can kind of understand why that would be as well. I think it would be helpful to think about how vendor providers might be able to achieve savings if they could, you know, compartmentalize the various elements of their services and then give people and how much each one costs, and then give people a list of, do you need all of these? Or are there certain things that you do not need? You know, just an idea.
I see in the chat an introduction from Peter. Hello, Peter, welcome. Let's see. New community program specialist with SCDD. Very good. Valerie writes, are there specific things that must be included in the person-centered plan? I would say the answer to that is yes. There aren't, gosh, I feel like I want to like share a document or something. The person-centered plan is really, you know, encompassing the individual's hopes and dreams and what's important to them, what makes them tick, so to speak. You know, what happens for that individual that would result in them having a good day or a good experience, what results in them having a not so good day. There's a lot of person-centered planning tools to include the good day, bad day exercises. There's important to and important for. So what's important to a person versus what's important for them. So just, I mean, I feel like, Valerie, I want to send you some tools. Maybe I could do that. And then you would have some more concrete information to work from.
I think one of the main thing is including individual choice in the person-centered plan, and really looking at what the participant wants and what they need, and then what are the services and supports that will be provided and put in place to help them reach their goals. And then the person-centered plan then drives the IPP. So yeah, and I appreciate that, Kadada. You said no one can dictate an individual's person-centered plan. It is individual choice, and no one dictated. It is, you know, we definitely want participants to invite family members, friends, if they choose to include them in the process for input and discussion and sharing of experiences that they might have had, or strengths and things that they have, you know, bonded with the participant over. I think that those are really important pieces. But at the end of the day, the self-determination person-centered plan really comes down to individual choice and supporting those, and then finding the services and supports that help that person meet their goals.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Tracy. It's more about elements than requirements, as Kadada said. It's not like a dictating you have to have these components, but as long as it tells a story and it makes a picture of the individual, those are the important components.
So I'll tell you a story. A mom was talking to me who had done a person-centered plan, is not in SDP, but chose to do a person-centered plan for her daughter because she had seen it done, and she thought it was a really great concept. And she made almost like a brochure with information that she had developed with her daughter that was important to, important for. And then she actually utilized this document when people came over to the house, like if it was a respite provider, she would share the information with them so that it was consistent about across the board with, or she even shared that she utilized it in the community sometimes with some of the places that they frequented over and over and over, so that the people who interacted with her daughter would have some more information about her choices and about who she was, and what her life goals are. So the person-centered plan can be utilized even outside of SDP if someone chose to do that, just as this mom did, just to benefit her daughter when those interactions, when she would take her to the store, then she said, oh, the lady at the grocery store who we see, they go to her line and to check out. Those interactions are have a little more substance and questions and personalization. So
I love that story.
sorry,
Hi.
I'm just looking at.
Can I maybe expand on what I was typing? I guess my biggest question here, like I'm totally familiar with the essential lifestyle plans and the one-page descriptions and path planning. But I'm wondering, when we're not in SDP, we have the requirement with our ISPs to provide medical information and things like that. So is any of that information going to be conveyed to the regional center in some manner, or is that separate totally from our person-centered plan?
I don't know that, Jen and Tracy, I don't know that there's one right way or wrong way for that. They will have their person-centered plan. And in addition, we're also doing an IPP. So
Right. That's what I was thinking.
I don't think there's a wrong way, Valerie. If it's in the person-centered plan, that's great. If it's in the IPP, that's great too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on that just a little bit? And the person-centered plan is required prior to coming into self-determination, correct?
No, it's not. It's not actually required. You don't have to have a person-centered plan in self-determination. It's encouraged. It's a good tool. It helps you and your providers and our participants. It helps really shape the services they might be receiving, or help their providers, like as Tracy was saying, really help them understand and know the person. But it is not a requirement. What is core to SDP is just person-centered planning in general, making sure that we are really focusing on the choices and the wishes of the person, but it's not required to have a person-centered plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Michelle speaking. I'm going to put a link in the chat because on our website, we have a document called It's My Choice. And it has some really nice ideas about person-centered planning. And so I'll just go ahead and drop that in the chat. And you can take a look at that as an example or to get some ideas.
So I don't see any more questions in the chat, but does anyone have, you can always turn off your microphone and ask too. I don't know if there's any.
Tracy, can I address Susan's? There was a question that kind of snuck through there from Susan about, if you don't have a network, what do you do? Where do you hire staff if you don't have connection with your community or church and so on. Well, first I would say it's not really the role of the FMS to be doing that. That could be the role of an IF who is skilled in your area, who could know places to advertise, to recruit people, maybe community colleges, maybe, it's going to take creativity, and that's what SDP is all about. So if you don't have connections, you don't even know where to start, then the role of an IF might be really important, because they may have developed connections and ideas. And then just networking with the IFs around the state. There are groups that meet monthly that are independent facilitators, and they share ideas. There's a self-advocate group of participants in self-determination, or people interested, that meets once a month as well on Zoom, and they share ideas. So, and then there's Facebook groups for SDP and also for IF specifically, and they all share ideas. And so even if it's somebody in LA or the Bay Area, they might come up with some great ideas. So a lot of this is going to come down to networking and people sharing ideas and talking to others who have done it. I mean, we only have, 12 now who are in SDP in our area. So we don't have a huge pool of experienced independent facilitators. But you can still learn from others around the state. So of the, almost 600 who are in SDP, you can learn from the other facilitators and the other parents and self-advocates who are participating through some of those meetings that happen on Zoom. So they're really accessible for anyone to participate. But yeah, it will require creativity.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Sonia. It's Susan again. I think that the thing to consider, though, is, I mean, in particular, if the individual who will be going into self-determination is not really able to self-advocate or to do a lot on their own, it's really incumbent upon the parent that creative, to do a lot of this work, to take on that role, especially insofar as what we were talking about related to cost, since independent facilitators often charge an hourly rate. It's just a conflict, I think, for those that, understand what that is taking on. It's a big responsibility to try to find good people, which is why I think a lot of our vendors struggle to find good people. But I think am I wrong that it would really rely a lot on the parent or whoever is advocating for that individual to do a lot of the work?
It has in some of the examples that we saw in prior Q&A sessions.
Can I say something? Hi.
Hello.
So
Hi, Kadada.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to tell, I think it was Susan that was just talking. You don't have to have one independent facilitator, and you don't have to have an independent facilitator that is paid. So if you know someone that is really good at doing this, you can have several independent facilitators. So maybe you can have one who is being paid, who might know, if you choose to do that, but you can have several independent facilitators, and they can be family members or friends or neighbors. And then if they all collaborate, then, hopefully the best outcome, you'll end up with the best outcome.
Mm-hmm. Good input.
Crickets?
I know. Thanks for sharing that, Kadada. And thanks for empathizing with me not being on video there. I appreciate that. I saw that in the chat. Yeah, so I don't let's keep it going. These are great questions and great discussion. So if there's more, please hop on.
I have I'll ask a question since everyone is shy. I just wanted to know, because it just seems that a lot of, the service coordinators are not on the same page. And I have a number of families that are expressing interest in the self-determination program. However, they're getting different feedback, but all negative feedback from service coordinators. And yeah, that's a major barrier.
Kidada, thank you for bringing that forward. Please encourage those families to reach out to maybe their service coordinator's manager, or to me or Michelle or Tracy. We want to nip that right away. We want to fix it. We're promoting SDP every single day. And so I just, I know that a lot of families come to you and they look to you for guidance. And I'm so grateful that you are such an advocate for families and you can be their voice. We need to know. If you could just, or if you want to set up a meeting with them and me, or with me and Michelle and Tracy, or whatever we can do, I just really want to address that right directly. You know, it's just so important to me and Michelle and Tracy and our agency that we know right away. We can't just have.
I want to add to what you're saying, Jen, because
thank you.
Earlier,
I'm so passionate about it. I'm gonna mute myself.
I know, me too. I'm passionate too. I said this earlier today when we had this question around what our service coordinators, what are we sharing and what are we training, and I said, oh my gosh, I don't know if any of you remember, but Jason Lindo, who I took his position, he was the SDP, what we refer to around here maybe as the guru. And since I have come on, I have learned so much, and I'm very excited about SDP. And so on Thursdays, we have these open Q&As similar to what we have now for the community, but we have it for our service coordinators. And, the last few times we have it every Thursday, and we've had over 100 people on the Q&A. I mean, it's been fantastic. And managers and service coordinators are both coming, and we're getting great questions. We do one topic per week so that we are making sure, and then we'll be repeating those as the weeks go on. But so that's something that we've done. But then we also, on top of that, when managers are in these meetings, we then, they're taking information and notes on all of the topics, and then they are going back to their individual units on a smaller scale and having the discussion around the topic, having questions, brought up within their smaller units, as well as we have kind of some of the service coordinators who have been through SDP with their clients already and have flipped the switch, as we say. Those service coordinators we've kind of designated as in-house what we call the SME, the subject matter experts, and they have been on these calls on Thursdays and have also participated in sharing their experience. And so, to hear, Kidada, you say all your families, that word all concerns me, because that shouldn't be. It shouldn't be every single service coordinator. And I don't know what the amount is that you're referring to. And so maybe, as Jennifer was saying, definitely we need to know. We need to know. And I know there have been some parents who have reached out to me directly and said, hey, this was something the service coordinator said. We follow up with the manager. We make sure that the service coordinator has the tools, the information. Every Thursday morning, I send out a re-invite so that everybody, it's at the top of their calendar to make sure that they come that afternoon. And that, it's just a great reminder. But yeah, we definitely, and I know Jennifer and Michelle are both passionate about this, and we definitely want to encourage it, and we want to have this in place and have the availability for any of our clients who want to pursue SDP. So please keep communicating specifically, or have the families that are coming to you share with them. On our website is our I'm drawing a blank on what it's called.
Organizational chart.
Organizational chart.
Directory. Yes.
Yes, our directory. And so you can look up any service coordinator and you can see who their manager is. And so you please encourage the parents to, if they're getting that type of information from a service coordinator, to look up and let them know who the manager is. Or you could call the front desk and you can always ask too. But communicate with them and so that we can make sure that we are on top of that.
Thank you. I have another quick question. What type of outreach if any, are service coordinators required, well, maybe I'm phrasing this, I'm not phrasing it the right way, but are service coordinators are required to inform families of their option of the self-determination program?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a that is something that we've implemented into their communication with families, clients and families, when they reach out to them, even just in conversation, but specific to having those IPP meetings as well, or quarterlies. Any communication, we definitely want our service coordinators, at least, if not, they, it doesn't have to be a long dialogue. I think it definitely needs to be shared. And we have armed service coordinators with, like, our website is the easiest one to help point families to look up SDP, as well as the DDS website. And the easiest location there to find information for me, this is just for my personal experience, is the FAQs, the self-determination frequently asked questions, because it's broken down by topic. And so we have shared these with service coordinators and said, if parents are interested, clients are interested, let them start reading about it. And then if they're still showing interest after looking at some of the information, attend the orientation, and really start delving into the different parts and pieces of SDP.
Okay. Is it possible to add it as a checkbox on the 588?
We've been talking about that. Yes,
Yeah.
that is possible.
Very good.
You're way ahead of the game. Yes, it is possible, and that is something that is on our list of making revisions. So we will look at that. And if it's not on specific as a checkbox, there's notification and advisements, and there's also the typed IPP that we would like to see. That information has been discussed with the family, because again, this year at the IPP, you might say, no, I'm not too interested. But maybe you come back next year, and if it's in the IPP and it's written in there, and they say, okay, I know we talked about this last year, but is this something that let's revisit it? And maybe the next year or the next year or the next year, SDP would be something that somebody's ready for. We just never know.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
And there's a question in the chat about what is a 588. Oh, I see Jen just replied. Okay.
It's sort of a short form IPP until the long form is written.
Exactly. Margot, I see your hand up.
Yes, hi. So
Hi.
Hi, good evening. So not to pile on or anything, but so confidence level with regards to this transition, where are you on that in terms of getting all these service coordinators trained? Because as of I think maybe 2 weeks ago, I was discussing with my own service coordinator, and she had not been trained yet on SDP. I think her training was canceled. So of course that's concerning to me, and me having to explain to her that I've already gone to a number of these trainings along with the other parents here, explaining a difference between an FMS and an IF to her. So basically knowing more than she does with regards to all of this. And we're looking at a July 1st transition date, and we're talking about, with the bottlenecking and all this and that. I mean, how confident are we that Alta is going to be able to, for the parents who are ready to go, going to all these trainings above and beyond learning more than our own coordinators, how well can they assist us?
Thank you for asking that, Margot. I have talked to your service coordinators manager specifically about this transition and about working this through together, offering my support to be there right alongside. Your service coordinators manager is working through some SDP, navigating the process right now. So I think she's well equipped. And to answer your question about confidence, I'm confident that we'll make sure that you get what you need. I'm confident that if your service coordinator doesn't know the answer, that we will get the answer. I'm confident that you have probably spent more time studying and I've seen you at every single one of these Q&A sessions, which I love. And I've shared that too. So I know it's probably true that you are more well-versed in the ins and outs of SDP. And I can see where that might feel uncomfortable. I think what I can do is reassure you that if you're not getting what you need, you can reach out to Angela or me, or you can reach out to us together, and we'll work with you to make sure that your family gets what they need and the support. Because I think, as Sonia mentioned, we have just 12 SDP participants total so far, and we do expect to have more. We're excited for that. We're ready to take it on. So I know you might feel like I'm working around your question, but I'm just letting you know that it's important to us. So we are confident that we'll be able to support you.
Yeah, and can I share something, Margot, because I hear what you're saying, and I was a service coordinator. I started as a service coordinator in 1999, and I remember coming on and not knowing much about the IPP process, not knowing much about service and supports and what I could authorize and what I couldn't authorize, and and going to those planning team meetings and really knowing that the parents knew more than I did. But what I found was that we worked together, and my manager, I would go back to my manager and say, I really didn't know the answer to this when I was at the planning team meeting, and I need to some guidance and support. And I think that's one of the key things, is that we'll come together and provide that support to the service coordinator. And parents, caregivers, people who are with the clients are the experts and know the, important to, important for, a lot better. And so your input is so valuable and so important. And I don't want you to feel like, yes, you probably do know more right now, as Jen was saying, about SDP, and that in and of itself will help the team process. But we also want to help our service coordinators and support them in finding the information and individualizing it, because this is really supposed to be individual services. And so, one SDP path is going to be very different from the other SDP path. And so we really need to help our service coordinators navigate that. So,
but it's not just the service coordinators. And I really do work well with mine. It's not any fault of her own that she's not getting the training, but it's even the other departments, like with accounting, like the very first step for us is to understand what our budget is. Something as simple as requesting our budget gets confused down the way, and they come back with a statement of service, which is not the reflection of our actual budget. And then they have to go back to the manager and go back to whoever in accounting. And then they get told, well, we can't release that to you until July. But then we are telling them, no, you are authorized to release that to us now. So just, getting on the same page with all departments anyone who is part of the team that's going to be handling this, accounting, service coordinators, is everyone aware of what they need to do and what they can give to us and how we are supposed to get started? Because that is essentially step one for us,
right.
Or 1A,
You're right.
1B.
Last Thursday at our SDP Q&A, we did reiterate to everyone, you can give your budget. Yeah, we can initiate the budgets now. I don't know if your service coordinator was there at that day, but I know the manager was. So, it's just, yeah. I feel like anything I would say to you would be an excuse, and I don't like that. I don't like excuses. So thank you for your feedback. We will, that's just evidence that not everyone hears everything the first time, and we'll keep on reiterating for sure. And to that point, Kadada wrote a question about a training manual, and I have a typo in my response, but just saying we do have a lot of working documents, and we're constantly refining and revising them as we learn more. The SDP implementation timelines
Implementation.
document is our newest document, and that's been our go-to guide recently. So that will continue to be refined as we learn more. And when we have I would love to see us with a training manual for sure. I just think
And
that
I want to say,
it's all the
Jen,
pieces.
I
Yeah,
just
no,
want to share that the implementation, Margot, this is great information. That was actually kind of collaborative with some participants and family members that had been through the process and shared with us the things that worked and things that didn't work during their process. So, again, like we said, we've only been through 12 of flipping the switch, but that was extremely helpful. So please, that feedback is knowing what works and what doesn't work only helps us to, develop these tools that we can then continue to work with our staff on.
Mhm.
Also, just a quick question. I'm not sure if anyone's asked, but is there any type of ranking system with clients in terms of who would be getting the transition earliest? Like, let's just say like a 3-year-old versus a 17-year-old about to leave the school system? Or is it just how quickly you get all your paperwork done and how efficient your team is? Are clients at all going to be ranked? I'm not sure if you can answer that, but just curious.
Not that I've heard.
Correct. Yeah. No ranking system.
Mm-mm.
It's each individual participant and their choice, and really the speed at which they want to move forward. We know, just in our experience with the 12 that are already in, everyone has kind of gone at their own pace, but definitely not a ranking system.
This is Nancy. I'd like to jump in. I feel a little out of place in some ways. My son is, and I don't want to go like all about individual issues right here, but we currently don't receive actual services through the regional center. My son's 16. He is a client. He was diagnosed later as a young teen with autism, so we don't have like the day one experience with the regional center services. I'm wondering if we are actually even qualified for self-determination. I'm hoping we are.
everyone is qualified over the age of 3. Yes.
Okay.
And if you don't have services in place, that's okay. The team can determine what services did you need, could you have needed.
Okay.
And those are called unmet needs or
Right.
changes in circumstances. So no fear.
And okay, so one of my questions then, it really has to do with the fact that he is not in school. We pulled him out to homeschool because it was a better option for him. And so we know we have an IEP that we receive services in school, but we no longer have those services. And so I'm kind of, all over the place, and I'd be happy to not talk about this here and talk about it with someone one-on-one if that's a better place. But, I see a lot of potential for finding services for him that are more relevant than what he was getting before.
Can you tell us how old your son is?
Yeah, he's 16 and a half right now.
Okay. And are you in Sacramento County?
Yes, we are.
Okay. You can reach out to me and I can answer your questions and connect you with resources and,
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
we are getting some resources, but they're straight out of
Okay.
pocket, and it's a
Oh
little
my.
financially overwhelming. So that's where I'm looking at self-determination to see if we can take some of that burden off. And you know, they're not services that were provided, you know, offered to us other than what we found for ourselves. So but yeah, I'll reach out to you, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
Yes, Jennifer Bloom, and I'm happy to connect with you offline, and we can get some good conversation started.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I love this whole idea. So I'm
Oh, good.
very jazzed. Thanks.
I'll let someone else talk. If anyone else has their hand up, I can't see because I'm on my phone. No? Okay.
I don't think so, but I think I know we're over 6 p.m. We're over our hour. So go ahead and then we'll try to wrap it up if there are no more questions.
Well, I'll be brief. I was just happy that I've gone to several trainings, and last week I actually saw my daughter's former service coordinator at one of those trainings, and she's actually on this call, and it would be great if you can probably collaborate with her, because she can probably explain both sides, because sometimes when service coordinators or the regional center is approaching a situation, they're approaching it from a regional center standpoint, where we're approaching it from a stakeholder standpoint or a self-advocate standpoint. And now that she's been on that training, her name is Janae, and she's going to be an independent facilitator, and I think she'll be awesome, and she's going to be my daughter's independent facilitator as well. But I just wanted to say that and call her out, Janae Hess.
Yay.
Great, thank you.
Well, I hope that there's an opportunity for something like this to continue, maybe not, 2 sessions a month, or well, I don't know what the timing should be, but I think there's a lot that I learned from this, and hopefully a lot that the regional center learns from this. And we've only just started up that learning curve. So I do want to thank you again for hosting these sessions, because I certainly found them really valuable.
Thank you for being so loyal. And just a reminder too, these are all these sessions are recorded, and they're on the State Council's website and Alta Regional Center's website. And we'll see, how this evolves and what we need to do moving forward. And yay, Janae.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening, and I appreciate all the good conversation and questions.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.